relationships that end are not failures. I think that is a mindset that keeps people in incompatible and wrong relationships for way longer than they should. Just because something is painful doesn't mean that the decision was wrong. You are brave to say goodbye even if it doesn't feel like it. I wrote this script when I was in the thick of some heartbreaks last year and I couldn't bring myself to film it. So now that I'm finally fully healed, I thought I would make this video for old me. I don't think enough is said about how painful it can be to be the person who chooses to go. And I want to be clear that I am aware that there's a power imbalance, right? Like the person who leaves does have it slightly easier because they've probably thought about leaving several times already, and so they are more emotionally and mentally prepared for it when the time comes. I know this, and yet it still hurts like hell. But I do feel like people who leave sometimes get the bad rep, right? And that can make it even harder to make the decision, even if you know in your heart of hearts that it's the right one. Before I continue, I think I want to say that, this video is not meant to excuse bad behavior in any way. Leaving a relationship immaturely, like blindsiding them, leaving right when things are getting tough, ghosting them, breaking up over text, like God forbid, do people still do that? These are extremely unempathetic and unkind and uncaring ways to treat someone that you're supposed to love. But there are a lot of people who leave in the kindest ways possible. The people who don't leave the moment that things get tough, who genuinely try and work through problems, who communicate as kindly and lovingly as possible at the moment of the breakup. Even with all of these things factored in, it still is hard for both parties, always. Heartbreak at any age is painful, but I think heartbreak when you're in your 20s can be especially crippling because that's often the first time that we've truly experienced deep, heart-wrenching grief. Our 20s is the time when our communities really start to solidify, and the person that we love usually sits right in the center of that. Not just in the center of our social circles, but also they are such a big influence on the way that we spend our time, the way we spend our money, the way we plan for the future. So I think when you leave your partner, especially someone who has been integrated into your life over the course of months or years, you don't just lose the other person, but you lose all the other parts of your life that were tied to this person. It's a huge identity loss in a way. And that can feel especially scary when you're in your 20s and you're at the start of building a life for yourself. At the lowest point during some of my breakups, I had one of my friends tell me, "You are brave for leaving. You are brave for recognizing what you need in a healthy relationship. You are brave to say goodbye even if it doesn't feel like it. Even if it feels like you are a terrible person." Because that's the thing that sucks about being the person who's doing the breaking up. You don't just experience the pain of losing the other person, you also experience immense guilt. You experience the internal conflict that comes from wanting to stay and yet knowing that it's better to leave. There's also so much shame in leaving someone who you used to promise the future to. I know the feeling of constantly second-guessing your decision. I know that the what-ifs and the uncertainty and the self-doubt can be paralyzing. There are so many what-ifs, right? Like, what if I didn't try hard enough? What if I stayed and things got better? What if I don't find someone else who's the same or is going to be as good as this person? Usually, it gets worse before it gets better. But I want you to remember, if you're experiencing this, that just because something is painful doesn't mean that the decision was wrong. Don't lose sight of the ways that the relationship didn't work. And don't lose sight of why the relationship fell apart in the first place. Because two people who don't fit just won't work. No matter how much you will it to, right? Like when conflict becomes a constant recurring event in your relationship, when the relationship becomes more draining than life-giving, then sometimes leaving is the best thing that you can do for both yourself and your partner. Relationships that end are not failures. I think that is a mindset that keeps people in incompatible and wrong relationships for way longer than they should. Every relationship that I've had, right, like no matter how much negative emotion that it might have spurred in me whilst I was still in that relationship, I've eventually learned to see it as a gift. I look back now at all my previous relationships, and each one was truly a precious opportunity to just learn how to love someone, right? Like to experience what it's like to just truly experience that much affection for another human being, to open yourself up so fully to someone else in a way that is extremely scary in its vulnerability, but also really beautiful and not something that you get to experience all the time. It's strange then that we see relationships ending, and by extension, the people who choose to leave relationships, as the bad guys or as something that's taboo, because it's not, right? Like it's in the better interest for the other person to also not continue the relationship, because no one deserves to be in a relationship with someone else whose heart is partway out the door. So in many ways, leaving someone is also a way to set them free, to help them find the love that they deserve. I want you to know that them leaving is not always a reflection of you. It's sometimes a reflection of them, and ultimately it's a reflection of how you both fit together. I don't know the context of what happened with you, but maybe I could share this. In the aftermath of me leaving all my past relationships, I hoped that my past partners would know this to be true, and that is that all of the warm and fun and lovely memories were all real, that I never regretted any moment, and that I meant every word in the moment that I said it. And that in many ways, I'm grateful to them still, because they taught me what it's like to love and be loved. For all of us who have lost in love, which is probably most of us watching this video, I hope that you remember that to open yourself up to the possibility of great love is to open yourself up to the possibility of great pain, but also great beauty. And I think finding love, experiencing love, makes the risk of experiencing pain worth it. So I really hope that no matter how many heartbreaks you have to go through, in whatever form that may be, you never stop believing in love and you never stop loving.